Bug resists ground, but is not super effective against it.
Bug resists ground?
Bug resists ground.
Why is it
like
new information?
Yeah, bug resists ground. Let me second guess it. I have it on my second monitor here just so I don't forget.
It's right in front of me. I still feel like it's wrong.
You're tuned into the GOCast podcast, your one-stop shop for updates, news, tips, and community in the world of Pokemon Go. Thank you for listening.
It's time to get cracking on some eggs during this upcoming Community Day.
Did the Regieleki raids turn out well this past weekend?
It's shiny redemption time with this week's PokéPoll question.
So, did we spring into action during the Spring into Spring event? And more on this episode of GOCast. Hello and welcome to the GOCast podcast, episode 232. It's April 11th, yet another Tuesday evening. I'm your host, Chris, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Kyle.
Hiya.
Hey, Kyle, how you doing this week?
I'm in pain.
Ooh, pain without the Spain without the S, right? Isn't that the thing?
Is that what the youngins say? I don't know. Let me go ask my coworkers.
These memes are too fast and too furious to keep up with. But yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. What's going on?
I got a sore. My mouth makes it very difficult to talk, and yet here I am talking for a
podcasting.
Hobby, so
that's right. Well, thanks for pushing through. I think a lot of us can relate with having a sore in our mouth at least one point in time. That's awful. But thank you for being here. Gold star, 10 points or what? I don't know what I'm supposed to say there, but thank you. Okay, so we had a week. We definitely had a week in Pokemon Go this past week. It was the week wherein there was fallout from the remote raid pass changes that hit. That was interesting. We had the Regieleki raids that happened on Easter. That was interesting to navigate as well. It's been a week.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the goals we set. And then I kind of want to review how the week sort of went, because I've got some highlights to share, believe it or not. Like some good catches.
Okay.
Share online and stuff. Oh, yeah. But first and foremost, shout out to a brand new patron of ours. Thank you to Mark. We appreciate your patronage and supporting the show. And more about Patreon and patronage at the end of the episode. All right. So Mr. Kyle, last week, you set the quite achievable goal of mega progress.
Yes.
Let's go. Amazing.
Slowly but surely.
You got it. 500,000 experience.
No, that didn't happen this week.
Did not happen. Did you end up not playing as much as you thought you might?
Yeah. It wasn't as much. And then the weather got really nice. And I'm like, oh, I should be playing. And then I was working.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
It has been beautiful. Well, we were owed some beautiful weather after we had storms for like 3.5 weeks straight. So
yeah, but hey, it's starting to stay nice outside. So that's good.
It is good. Just in time for Community Day this weekend as well, which is fantastic. Buddy progress is your third goal.
Yes. Again, slowly but surely.
Nice. And did you evolve and register a Rabombi?
I did. Exactly one. And I'm like, all right, I don't need any more of this pretty much ever again.
Nice. All right. 3 out of 4 for you. Excellent. 3 out of 4. Even when you didn't get to play as much as you thought. That's some success right there. So for myself, 200 million experience total. That certainly did not happen. It's on my list again this week. I have not been playing as much as I think I'm going to. This has happened 2 weeks in a row right now, but I did end up hatching quite a few eggs last week. It was like 60, something like that. Very happy about the Spring into Spring event with the incubator bonus. It was great. Gross. But I need 1.2 million to get to my 200 million mark. I will have that next week because Community Day.
Mm-hmm.
I will certainly get a big chunk and hopefully just do that, but did not happen this week. 50 eggs, like I just said, I definitely did smash that goal. 1 shiny. It was until about 4 hours ago that this goal was left unchecked, but I did hatch Buzzer Shiny. I did hatch a shiny Munchlax, which I'm thrilled about.
Wow, it's a really good buzzer shiny.
It is a good one. One Regieleki, I ended up catching 4. We'll talk about the experience with those elite raids and how that went for me and some other stories we've heard online in the news section this week. So that's 3 out of 4 for me as well. I guess I'm gotta send you half that belt back. That's fine.
Just take off some of the tape and take them apart delicately.
Honestly, if we lived closer to each other, we would save so much on postage every single week. It's a bit ridiculous, but anyway.
We're keeping the post office in business. It's okay.
That's right. So let's talk about the week. I got a couple of things I want to share before we hop into the news and discuss how the elite raids went. Number 1, if you don't mind me going, I'm just excited to talk about this. I caught a new Shadundo this week, Kyle.
I saw that.
And it was a Larvitar.
Yeah.
Wow. It's hype, dude. That's really hype. That's, if I was a YouTuber, that's a let's go and lose my mind moment for sure. Because I definitely did that, but just on my own and not in front of a camera. Very, very happy about that. The shiny Munchlax that I mentioned. And then beyond that, I did catch another hundo this week, and it was a Bunnelby. So that's been evolved and maxed to a Diggersby with an extra move, and I wasted like 2 million dust this week. Maxing out that Shadow Larvitar, now a Tyranitar, was really expensive. That was like 600,000 dust or something like that.
That sounds about right, approximately.
It's awful. Every time I do it, I'm always surprised. It's not the first time, and it's not the last. But my goodness. Any interesting catches or hatches for you this week? You must have been hatching at work, right?
No, nothing special. No, I'm saving my incubators right now.
All right.
I've got a bunch of 5K eggs from like 3 weeks ago that I still haven't hatched. So
you gonna hatch them this weekend?
Maybe. We'll have to talk about that.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, then I suppose there's no point in skirting around it anymore. Let's just hop into the news. Yo, what up? It's the news. Now, we technically don't have any news to talk about, but the Regieleki raids did happen this weekend. And that is kind of news enough to sort of discuss how that went down. Now, was it as bad, and I mean like as bad as in did not work, as Regidrago was? The answer is no. This was an improvement over the Regidrago experience, as in more trainers had less issues overall. That being said, our poor friends over in New Zealand had issues yet again. The reports were that they were locked out of their gyms because, if you did not know this, apparently gyms have a cap of how many raids can be active in it in any given time. Mm-hmm. And since this is the first time zone that this raid was available, much like when we give the advice that if you're looking for people to raid with and you don't have a community, show up at Hatch, the spoofing community also does that, but seemingly at a global level. Now, when you're in New Zealand and these first come out, the spoofers are just like, let's go there first, apparently. This is all conjecture, but this is the reports that we've heard and seen. And these gyms fill up. So the people that were there physically could not get into these lobbies because the gym was always at its cap, filled with people that were cheating their location. Now, it's almost poetic.
It's very funny.
It's almost poetic that these changes that we've almost universally pushed back on and wonder why and all these sorts of things have exacerbated the one issue that has been happening through this entire game, i.e. falsifying your location through different sorts of apps, which is, yes, very much so against terms of service and is viewed by most people as cheating. That this would encourage more of that because people can't be at gyms in person. Now, would spoofers have done this anyway? Well, of course. That's like I just said, that's always been a problem in this game. There's always been a community around it. But these changes, people have come out and said in mass that they're just going to spoof now and just to be there next to these gyms in person instead of like going in person, right?
Spoofing happens. It has happened for the entire lifetime of the game. Before remote raids were a thing, jokingly call it air support because you look around and there's nobody, but somebody joins your gym.
Right.
And it was going to happen for Regieleki raids regardless because it's the first time zone that it shows up in. But would it have happened to this degree is the question. And seems unlikely, but we obviously don't know.
Right. And it certainly didn't help. Right.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the idea here. If you could remote raid. Now, of course, you couldn't remote raid Regieleki anyway. Right. And this kind of brings in this second sort of side to this topic that I wanted to bring up. I saw a lot of people that are pro in-person raiding talking about the successes that they were seeing online around the elite raids this weekend, of people being thrilled to be out with their communities in person doing stuff. That's awesome. I agree. I was in person at these raids, but we always had to be in person for these elite raids. There was never an option to remote them. So to me, it doesn't really prove anything. If anything, what they could have done is not gone through all this trouble around remote raids, but focused on making the elite raid system better, more encouraging, and have a great supply of different Pokemon in it, besides 2 new ones every, so often like we just had. I feel like they could have leaned on those to promote in-person play much more than pulling the rug out from underneath people with the remote raid pass changes.
Yeah.
I just don't see it as proof of this model working,
No.
that people had a good time at their
raids. You could
raids.
make an argument
that
Regieleki is maybe more popular than Regidrago for something like this.
Sure.
Both are not relevant in Go, but Regieleki is still far more better in the main series games. And
yes,
maybe has more fans, and that can definitely sway results like this.
It's true. It's very, very true. Now, for the experience itself for Regieleki, it did work for more people this time than it didn't. So that's great. So sorry again, New Zealand trainers. Sorry, just that's a bummer. But keep trying. Thank you.
Beta testing this game.
Yeah. Now I live in an area that's relatively built up for Pogo. While I'm still considered rural, I'm in a historically rural area. So we have a lot of historic buildings that would get stops. Like our town square is full. There's a great park nearby that's also full of stops. And these raids popped up at 11, 2, and 5, right? 4, 11, 2, and 5, rather, on Easter Sunday. And I wanted to go to as many as I could at the 11 spot so that I can then go do family stuff and not have to worry about it. There was one 11 a.m. raid in the area that I was going to that had people. They did use Campfire to set up a meetup for this raid. And so that was cool getting to see that being used. About 8 of us RSVP'd, and then about 14 people total showed up, right? Which was pretty cool. But there was only the one. And there's a chance that you didn't catch that Regieleki. And then what if you were unavailable the other 2 time slots?
Is that only one 11 a.m. raid, or only one 11 a.m. raid people went to?
Only one 11 a.m. raid that was in that area. I went to Crystal Lake instead of Woodstock for this raid. Okay. If I had driven 20 minutes to the other town, I probably could have made it, but they're only a 30-minute timer. So I could have maybe done 2 maximum if people were ready to hop in that lobby.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, a good question though. It wasn't like there was another one downtown and like another one on on the beach or something like that. No, it was just the one in the one parking lot that we did. Now 2:00 rolls around and I'm like, I need to get at least another copy for Kyle. So I did my family stuff, and then 2:00 rolled around and there were 3 in a different park nearby. And I went and did all 3 of those. We had about, I think, 8 people for each one. Not a whole lot, despite there being some interest. I was lighting flares and Campfire to no avail. But the app did work great. So that was nice. And then I just didn't go to any of the 5 p.m. ones. Now, here's the thing. Most of the gyms, most of the raids this time ended up being 5 p.m. And I thought maybe that was just going to be luck of the draw in my area. But apparently this was something that sort of happened all over the place, that there was an increase in 5 p.m. raids.
Last time, wasn't there a significant lack of 5 p.m. raids?
I don't remember if there was or wasn't, to to be honest with you.
I feel like there was. I can't say for certain, but I feel like it.
But either way, having such large discrepancies between the 3 different time slots and it being random, seemingly so, does not actually take advantage of the benefit of having those 3 different time slots in the way that you would initially think, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you're like, oh, I have time at 11, that's great. I'm so happy that they're having raids at 11, and you only get 2s and 5s in your town. You're still just as much out of luck as you would have been otherwise.
Yep.
So my biggest contention with this now, despite the all of the complaints that you and I both had or criticisms about the elite raid system and EX raid system that, is now elite raid system. My biggest thing is that they just need to pick particular gyms, or say 50% of the gyms in this area on this day are going to have them at 11, are going to have them at 2, and are going to have them at 5. All of those gyms. Like we said before, I really don't see another solution, because if you only have 2 or 3 gyms, you're really fighting a losing battle trying to get it when you need to have it. And the system is set up to try to deliver it to people when they need it. That's why they have the time slots. They're trying to meet you there, but the eggs that spawn don't do the system any favors. Right.
Yeah. I don't know what the solution is personally, because is it that gym always going to have that time slot then for the rest of its life, for example?
No, I'm suggesting that every gym at 11 would have it, and then at 2, all those same gyms would have it.
They're not going to do that. We know they're not going to do that because they love the idea of the long egg for this.
Yeah.
The egg to show up 24 hours in advance or whatever it is. Because I don't know, that doesn't actually give people time to plan. No, people are not using that time to plan.
No, they're not. They're really, really not. And when these elite raids happen on a Saturday or a Sunday, if they're happening on a Saturday, it's the Friday that people would be planning around it, and they're still at work. And on Sunday, during the day on Saturday, they're probably doing stuff and being busy and not planning things out for their Sunday. And Sundays are generally rather busy for people anyway, too. Like, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is other than having much longer timers on them, maybe like a week in advance, that don't take the egg slot up for other raids in the meantime.
Yep.
I don't know. They need to try some other stuff with it, because it might work, but it could work a whole lot better, in my opinion.
I think the current system, on a technicality of the barest definition, works.
Yeah.
So, like, if that counts as a win, I guess that's a win. But it doesn't seem very enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool seeing people and stuff like that, but I don't really socialize with them. Like, I don't make new friends. They're just
There's
people
not enough time to make new friends.
No, because by the time we're in doing that raid, and then we're talking about where we're going to go next. And then those people are going right to their cars to get to the next raid, or already walking.
If you want to do more than one, you are fighting, basically.
Yes.
And where's your real life social interaction in that regard? Sure, we're talking about the game. That's fine. But I can talk about the game with 200,000 people online if I want to. That's not what we're talking about here. I'm all for the pushing social interaction. That's fine. That's what you want to do. Elite raids don't accomplish what they say they want to accomplish. They're almost completely against it in every regard, except that it requires you to be in person, which that, there's no getting around that. That's what that is.
Yeah, it's very strange. But I am thankful that both Reggie Drago and Regieleki didn't need more than like 3 or 4 trainers with decent counters to take down. If this had been another Hoopa Unbound scenario, there would have been lots of people that weren't able to do it. Because I saw plenty of people posting, about oh, I went and there was nobody there. Oh, I tried it the other times and there was still nobody there. But I saw even more reports, people being like, oh, I'm so thankful that my 2 neighbors came out to help me with this. And the 3 of us managed, right? If it had needed 5, those people would have had no chance.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And it's kind of helped by the fact that it's not meta relevant. So you don't need that many people, because not that many people would probably want to get a lot of them.
Right.
Versus Hoopa, where Hoopa is actually usable in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, there is innate value because of the dex entry, right? Which is why I go, because I know like you're not going to go. And I
did not go, by the way. We didn't say that. I mentioned it last time. I did not go. I was working for 2 of the 3 time slots anyways, so it doesn't really matter.
Man. Did you, was it a good tip day?
Oh, I don't even remember.
Man, must not have been.
We don't split them on Easter, so we'll see what the week's tips were like next week. But
okay. Gotcha. Well,
it was crazy. 2 people didn't show up, you know.
Oh, no.
And a rare occurrence, the manager actually came in and covered one of the 2 shifts, which is astounding.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I speak for everyone when I say thank you for working on a holiday. I appreciate you.
Not a government holiday. Don't get time and a half.
Oh.
So.
Meanwhile, everybody that I know besides my company, like all the people that we work with, medical associations and stuff, they're like, oh, it's Good Friday, take it off. Oh, it's the Monday after Easter, and we're not going to work either. Like 4 day weekends.
Yeah, right. Everyone's the Friday and Monday. I'm like, what's going on? Why Monday? I don't understand Monday. It's not like everyone's going out and getting drunk on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't think so. At least I don't know what people do to celebrate Easter. Yeah, every holiday for somebody is an excuse to party, right? But. Anyway, very strange stuff. Yeah, Regieleki raids did kind of, they went off, but it certainly was not off without a hitch. They've probably avoided an angry mob this time because we're more focused on the remote raid pass changes than an elite raid. But yeah, it seems to be still sort of hit or miss. And again, my opinion personally is that they could do several things to help improve that experience. And they should. Considering this is supposed to be a shining example of, hey, here's a special raid, it for a special occasion with your special group in your special area, right? Like that's the whole idea, the draw. It's exclusive, and you manage to get people together and take it down like Mewtwo in Times Square. That's the idea, and that's not realized quite yet. We just happened to manage to pull it off, and that doesn't feel nearly as good.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see when they run the 2 Urshifus in elite raids next.
Yep.
That's speculation. I don't actually know that. Just
it
just seems to make perfectly logical sense. I'm sorry.
It does. It'd be cool if we did get those. I would be super down for those because those have to be meta relevant, right? It's such a good Pokemon.
I think the water one is.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't remember. I looked at it like a year ago or something, but
will somebody finally unseat Kyogre?
No, absolutely not. Okay. Definitely doesn't beat Kyogre, but it's still relevant.
No way. Yeah.
It might compete with Kingler.
It might compete. Oh, yeah. Unless it gets Crabhammer just to be funny about it. And then there you go. That's it. Crawdaunt just cries. I'm like, oh, I was in 5th place, but now I'm not. Okay, so before we move on from the news, since this has kind of just become sort of a discussion section on the things that are topical right now, I have one other thing to bring up about the remote raid pass thing. Actually, a couple of things. First is maybe another solution that I thought of that I want to hear what your opinion is, Kyle. What if they made premium raid pass range like 2 or 3 times what it is? Like, what if you could use remote raid passes for things that are outside of your view only, and premium raid passes for anything that's in your view up to a certain point? So, like, for example, in Emerickson Park, right, where you and I have played before, and I play a lot, you can see about 13 gyms from there. So on a raid day, people would just kind of go and hang out around their cars, which was awesome. And we would just remote 13 raids together, or as many as we could get done in that raid hour, right? This isn't possible anymore because in any given place in that park, like only 2 gyms are close enough that you could set up a spot like that and hang out, right? You'd have to keep moving around, and some of that stuff is really non-traversable quickly. So what if remote raid passes with their limit and things like that and their expense were literally only used for like raiding with your friends across the ocean, and premium raid passes were basically how you would have locally used a remote raid pass?
I think it's okay. I think it's an alternative, but depending on the range in question, it really only benefits dense parks. You know, if even using the Emmerson example, there are some raids that are on the edge of your visibility when you're doing raids in that park. If that's within range, well, then that's fine. If it's any gym you can see, that's just a remote raid pass, basically with extra steps. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And they don't want it to be that far. So, you know, we're looking at like, what, I don't know, 300 meters. Use the raid change for what they do after community day.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be something you'd probably get across the distance of an average park, but not something massive like Emerson. That'd be okay. It'd be a positive change, but again, I think the biggest sticking point is the price of remote raids that then ties into being able to raid at different time zones.
Yeah. Yes.
Which kind of leads to an accessibility question and stuff like that. People who get to work mid shifts who can't ever raid unless they wake up really early and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the change that I'm trying to think of here would benefit some of those demographics, right? Like especially with a physical disability, right? Mm-hmm. It would be much more helpful. And from a safety perspective, that concern too would be more helpful. But yeah, it doesn't solve the problem around third shifters and things like that. So
I think it solves a problem around raid hour. The example that you gave. I think raid hour is probably kind of miserable right now. I don't know anybody who's doing them, obviously, but unless you have like a triple S tier park near you, you're doing like 2 raids during raid hour.
Yeah.
What's even special about raid hour at that point?
Very true. And I mean, you can use your 5 remote raid passes, but you're paying so much now. It's like not even really.
It's $10 to take part in raid hour. Like
it's not really a feasible option. Yeah. I agree with you. Have you done any remote raids this week, by the way?
No, I haven't done a remote raid since I did Mitch invited me to a random Lugia like 10 days ago or something. Okay. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Yeah. I don't want to do any raids right now. There's nothing I want.
I've done 2 Lugias since the raid pass changes, and I made sure that I had 5 before they went into effect. I bought them at their old price. And one of them I did because my friend didn't have enough people to get it done. And so I was like, sure, I'll help you. No problem. Right. And then the other one was just because I wanted to do another Lugia, at least one more Lugia while it was still in rotation. Mm-hmm. But I made a point of not doing remote raids besides those, and certainly not anything that wasn't a 5-star raid. Like,
yeah,
there's that screenshot going around of somebody receiving an invite to like an Eevee raid, and their comment is like, in this economy, like,
yeah.
We are all that person. Yeah.
Yes, we are all that person.
Yeah, the only other thing that I wanted to bring up was that I did get some questions from some of my friends that don't know anything about Pokemon Go, aren't included in it, and they heard about people being really angry about the remote raid pass changes.
My dad sent me a news article saying that Pokemon Go players are quitting, and he's like, is everything okay?
Fair question, Dad.
He's like, are you guys still going to do the podcast?
It's like, yes.
Yeah.
The responses that I got, or the questions that I got, and then the responses for my answers were remarkable. And it just reminded me again of what a fresh perspective and having no context of the conversation at large or the situation, like what that does for people. Right. And the two things were, well, it's their game. They can change it how they want. And also, you know, there are other games you can play from home. So maybe this game just isn't for them. And I had to stop before I was like, that's ableist. because they didn't understand the rest of the context. And it wasn't until after I was like, but you don't understand that these demographics saved Pokemon Go during the pandemic through this other feature. And they relied on that income for like 2.5, 3 years. And now they're just being completely disenfranchised. I'm like, that's why this is ableist. And that's why this is kind of a toxic topic for a lot of people. And they were like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But the initial knee-jerk reaction is the popular talking points that we still hear, even from people that know, well, not know better, but know more, right? And I thought that was fascinating in its own way.
Yeah, it's always very interesting. I talk to people and I'll be like, hey, did Pokemon Go make it into your news sphere this week?
Yeah.
Some are like, yeah, I have no idea what it said. And I'm like, and others are like, no, should it have?
Yeah.
These are all gamers to one extent or another. So
okay. Gotcha.
It makes sense. Except my dad. My dad is like, hey, I just saw this article. What's going on?
Yeah, but your dad might not actively game, but he is a gamer in heart.
Yeah, well, if I was younger, he would have probably gotten sucked into Pokemon Go just like every other middle-aged guy that we know who plays Pokemon Go. So
it's true. Yeah. Hard to escape the gravitational pull of Pogo in our age group, I think. Okay. So I think that's pretty much it for news. Kind of loosey-goosey. No new news stories. Sorry about that, y'all. But nothing. Oh, I guess other than to just say that Niantic has not responded to anything that anybody's put out yet. There's been no official response. There's been no nothing. And the silence is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Kind of disappointing.
Incredible.
We're not owed a response. It just would probably be in their best interest.
No, I'm pretty sure they're going just complete silence. They're just going to completely ignore it and keep moving on like everything else because they've decided that any response is a bad response. Which
Probably.
They are absolutely right. They are absolutely right. Nothing they say will actually help in any regard.
Yeah.
Unless it would be to take it back, which they're not going to do. We know they're not going to do.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
There is one bit that we can add that Community Day is this Saturday. Don't everybody forget.
Oh yeah.
I almost did. I now have plans on Saturday that I can't avoid. So yeah, it's my nephew's birthday party.
Okay. All right. You gotta make sure that these family members they stop having these birthday parties every year. They always get in the way.
I know, birthday parties on Community Day, and now my sister's graduating the weekend that we're having our meetup. Like,
oh
what?
My gosh, the nerve of these people that they don't check with you first before they have a birthday or graduate. Ridiculous. But anyway, that's going to be it for the news, which means we're going to go into Gear Up.
So this week on Gear Up, we're going to be talking about DPS. DPS, what's that stand for? Don Fans Purse of Viper? No, sorry. That'd be funny, though. Somebody
awesome.
Make a picture of that. I think most people know that DPS stands for damage per second. And if you don't, now you do. But what does that mean in Pokemon Go? We talk about Pokemon have certain DPS, moves have certain DPS, all that, but we kind of just take it for granted. And a lot of people, Go is their only game, or Go is their only RPG. And these kind of numbers, they don't mean anything. The terms don't mean anything. So I just want to say how we get to some of these terms so people can see why decisions are made in the way that they are. So first up, moves, both fast and charge moves, have durations or cooldowns. Those two terms are interchangeable. I will probably interchange them through this whole section, so I apologize. They mean the same thing. We're going to use Gengar for an example because it's one that I know and it's fun. Gengar's best fast move is Lick. It does 5 damage. The game actually tells you this. It tells you it does 5 damage. That's fun. It doesn't tell you that Lick has a half-second cooldown / duration. So for a half-second cooldown, 5 damage per use, that's 10 damage per second. They can use it twice per second. Nice, easy, fine. Bothers me so much that this information is nowhere in the game, by the way. You don't find this out unless you read the code or you do ridiculous testing that the game doesn't actually let you do. But anyways, Shadow Claw, Gengar's other fast move that's not Legacy, and it's significantly better than Hex, does 9 damage, and it has a duration of 0.7 seconds. So math that out, it has a DPS of 12.86. But I was told that Lick is better than Shadow Claw. Why? 12.86 is higher than 10, isn't it?
I think so.
Well, it is, but energy. Both Lick and Shadow Claw generate 6 energy per use. But thanks to Lick's lower duration, which is to say cooldown, it generates 50% more energy than Shadow Claw. It generates 12 energy per second versus Shadow Claw's 8.57. That's a big deal. But why do you care about energy? Well, with energy, we have charge moves. Charge moves have the same duration and cooldown going on for it, but instead of energy generation, they have energy cost. Gengar's go-to move, Shadow Ball, does 100 damage, costs 50 energy, and has a duration of 3 seconds. We're going to compare it to Shadow Punch, which is Gengar's only other stab charge move. It is Legacy. You can't get it without an Elite TM. And it does. Also, we're going to talk about stab later. I'm sorry for using this in the middle of this whole post. Don't worry about it. 40 damage, 33 energy, and a duration of 1.7 seconds. So there's a couple of ways that we calculate the power of a charge move. First is damage per energy, where you just divide the damage for the energy cost. Gives you a nice small number to compare with. Shadow Ball is 100 divided by 50 for 2.0. Shadow Punch is 40 divided by 33, which is 1.21. Shadow Ball wins. DPS for charge moves is calculated by damage divided by duration, because that's how frequently you can use the charge move if you have unlimited energy. Shadow Ball is 33.33, repeating, of course.
32.33, repeating, of course.
Shadow Punch is 23.53. Again, Shadow Ball wins. And then, for ease of understanding, you combine the two, rather for the ease of comparison, not understanding, you combine the two and you do damage per energy times DPS, and you get a final number you can compare with that shows the real disparity. Shadow Balls is 66.67, and Shadow Punch is 28.52. So more than double for comparison. Really shows how much better Shadow Ball is than Shadow Punch.
Yeah, much more value.
But what about DPS? We've strayed too far. DPS takes into account your fast move's damage, its duration, and its energy generation, and combines it with the energy cost, damage, and duration of a charge move. Lick does slightly less damage than Shadow Claw, as we mentioned, but it generates so much more energy that getting to use Shadow Ball more frequently makes it the better fast move overall and results in the most damage done to your raid boss. To clarify, this is also all about raiding or PvE. PvP has all of this calculation, just with different numbers. One last comment about this. Faster duration moves like Lick versus Shadow Claw make it easier to dodge, which is when you swipe during a raid, you can lower the incoming damage if you swipe during the appropriate window.
Which is when your screen flashes.
Yes. It took me probably 3 years before I actually knew that was a thing.
Yep, me too.
The screen flashes white on the edges of your screen when the raid boss is using a move that you can dodge.
And the amount of time, the reaction time that you would need is insane for that. And so you still end up kind of like relying on the animation or looking at the text prompt when it says it's using Hydro Pump or whatever, and then to time it. But if you're going,
it is varied per move. Some moves you see that white and you're like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Others, the white happens and boom, you're hit immediately, and you're like, oh well, I'm not dodging this move anyways. Okay,
right.
You can find all those windows online for how much time you have. I wouldn't do it. It's not worth it.
Really quick, what website are you using to find your numbers since it's not available in game?
These numbers were a combination of GamePress.gg and Pokemon Go Hub. .net. They present information just a little bit differently, so I use them to cross-check both of them overall.
Mm-hmm.
Both are great. I think GamePress is easier to use, but I used to swear by GoHub. So
yeah, and PokéPoll has these numbers too, right?
PokéPoll?
Yeah.
I mean, I know they have the numbers for PvP, which involve turns instead of actual time duration. So I don't know if they actually have the time duration on there. They probably do. All of this calculation is assuming stab and super effective. What do those two mean? Because we talk about them a lot. Stab means same type attack bonus. What does that mean? It increases the move's damage by 20% if the user shares the same type as the move. So a ghost type using ghost moves, a bug type using bug moves, and so on and so forth. Dual types gain double the advantage, as you would expect. What does super effective mean? Now, okay, so this blows my mind. There is nothing in the game that actually tells you this information, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
There's no type chart. There's nothing that tells you what types are better than other types in Pokemon Go. There might be something that mentions super effective as a thing, but that's it. You have to go outside to find more of this information.
I mean, there are tasks to use super effective charge moves, but that's about it.
But they don't tell you what super
that
effective
is. Yeah.
Even the main series games have resources that show you, and some generations are better at it than others, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, what is super effective? It increases the move's damage by 60% if used against a Pokemon that is weak to the move's type. You can see a variety of type charts for comprehensive information. The simplest example is fire does super effective against grass, which does super effective against water, which does super effective against fire. And this does double up. So if something has two weaknesses that one type is strong against, you will deal 2.56 damage instead of 1.6 times damage, I believe.
Yes.
And if it is resistant, that is a whole separate story. You can also look at the type charts for that. But with that in mind, Chris had a good idea and wanted to fit it in here. Just a quick quiz / reminder for some type matchups that can be really difficult to remember. Sometimes, you know, it's easy to forget there's 18 types that all have to mesh, and dual types negate other weaknesses. So, Chris, what is one that always stands out or that you forget happens?
So for me, the one where it's the relationship between fire and fairy that I always have an issue with. I'm actually going to look it up right now because as I was about to say what it was, I lost all of my confidence.
Fairy resists fire. Sorry.
Okay.
Fire resists fairy, but fire is not super effective against fairy.
The one-way relationships give me so much trouble because I always second guess myself and then I get it wrong because of that every time.
Yeah.
So
mine is also a one-way relationship.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. It's bug resists ground, but is not super effective against it.
Bug resists ground?
Bug resists ground.
Why is it
like
new information?
Yeah, bug resists ground. Let me second guess it. I have it on my second monitor here just so I don't forget.
It sounds like it's right in front of me. I still feel like it's wrong. Yeah. Oh, jeez. Okay. Isn't there also a relationship between bug and fighting types?
Yeah,
no, there's
bug resists fighting too. Makes no sense.
Fighting. Yeah. It's wild to me. Yeah, so let's take a couple of the newer ones. So let's take a look at Dark really quick. Dark is pretty straightforward, actually. It's slotted into a place in the overall type chart that really needed to be filled, and as a result, Fairy being added later is strange because of less holes needing to be, covered, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Dark, just from the Bulbapedia article, right? It was introduced in Generation 2. That doesn't matter to us and our purposes here. As well as introducing new Pokemon moves, a new Dark type. A couple of Dark types were added and stuff like that. Dark type moves are super effective against Ghost and Psychic types. And Dark type Pokemon are weak to Bug, Fairy, and Fighting type. Now, to me, all of those make sense. That all makes sense. There's nothing about that is a head scratcher to me. Because if you think about it, for ghosts, ghosts are going to be fine in the dark, I suppose, but it makes sense that they would have to have like some sort of malevolent force against a spirit, right, to overpower it. And the psychic it's a fear, right? That's the dark sort of thing. And then it being weak to fighting makes sense because fighting is not actually like, if you think about it in your head, it's more of like a heroic physical force instead of just physical force. Right. So it conquering evil, being dark, makes a lot of sense. For Fairy, that one's straightforward to me. That's a fantasy version of the same relationship.
I don't know. For me personally, I get them confused every time.
Every
single time I think Dark is super effective against Fairy, just because I think Fairy in my head needs more weaknesses. Okay. So I just assume that. That's my own fault. But also, Go has poisoned my brain, and so I forget about immunities all the time.
Oh, me too.
Dark is immune to Psychic, not resistant, which in Go is a 4 times resistant, so you'll deal a quarter of the damage instead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
Half of the damage, because resistant is only 0.75 in Go, I believe. I have to double check. Don't take my word on that one.
I think it's quarter damage. I'm not sure either. But anyway, and then Dark is weak to Bug, which makes sense to me because bugs are at home in the dark. They don't need a whole lot of light to see. And so they would still be effective in that scenario.
To confirm, resistant is 0.714 times effective, and immune is 0.51 times effective. So effectively half and quarter for simplicity's sake.
Gotcha. Good deal. Good deal. Any other relationships that you are unsure about?
No, those are the two that stand out for me. I always forget Dark is immune to Psychic, and I never remember Bug and Ground.
Poison used to give me a lot of trouble, but Go has fixed that for me. It's actually pretty two-dimensional once you get your head around it.
It's easy. Poison is useless against just about everything, so you don't have to worry unless it's Fairy.
Right. And you'd never want to bring it against Psychics because Psychic type attacks generally hit for high damage, and it will sneak up on you.
Ingrained in my brain, unfortunately.
Yeah, you will get chunked by a Mewtwo. Your Croagunk will die.
Yep.
And then Dragon was very interesting, but that's straightforward. For me, it was always Dark and Fairy. Those two always give me a hard time.
I always forget Dragon resists electric. And then I have to remind myself, it's like the fundamental forces.
Right. Fire, water, electric. Yeah.
And grass.
That's right, too. Yep. They're only weak to Dragon, Fairy, and Ice type moves. Yep.
I'm pretty sure they did that deliberately so that the starters would have a hard time with dragons when the player actually got to the
probably.
Game.
Probably. I mean, that would make the most sense to me. It makes sense for there to be sort of like a late game type. I mean, Dragon was already that before, and I feel like they just kind of lean into it now. If you have access to a Dragon early on, chances are it's not very great at max level.
Yeah, this is pretty safe at this point. They have finally, probably within the last, I'd say 2 generations, really strained away from dragons being only at the end of the game, which is pretty nice. Yeah.
Or they give you ones that have really high level caps for their other forms. So even if you do get it early, it's not going to be too strong too fast. Like Larvitar doesn't evolve until like level 54 or something ridiculous like that. So that's an interesting way to balance it too. But again, none of this really applies to Go. So yeah. But
it's fun to conceptualize. It helps, I think about the typing as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. Cool. Well, thanks very much, Kyle. And I did not know, I didn't realize that multiplying the DPS and DPE together got you this number that I've seen before in other places. I also did not consider DPE even a thing.
Oh, it's considered a lot, I believe, in PvP.
Oh, I would assume so. Yeah.
I don't know if so. DPE times DPS, it might be outdated at this point. I couldn't find new info, but I do know that TDO times or DPS times TDO cubed is outdated, and we did a segment on that a couple of years ago. So
why is it outdated? What changed?
It was always arbitrary. Somebody they found one that was for the most part a good estimate of what you would expect, and the folks over at Game Press finally went through a whole bunch of math and they came up with effective rating, and that's the number that they now use.
Gotcha. Okay, well, change is good. Progress is good. And in the spirit of that, thanks so much for Gear Up, but we're going to take a short little break here and then come right back for PokéLore. And for this week's PokéLore segment, we're going to be talking about, yes, they're about to have their day this Saturday. We're discussing or talking about Togepi, the Spike Ball Pokemon, Togetic, the Happiness Pokemon, and Togekiss, the Jubilee Pokemon. Yes, my favorite setup ever. Every single Pokemon has a different category in this evolutionary family. I can't stand it for some reason. I don't know why it bothers me, but it does. But Togepi first. Togepi is a small, light yellow Pokemon with a rounded, egg-shaped body. After hatching from its egg, Togepi's body remains encased in its eggshell. That shell has a white base color and rounded, mostly unfilled shapes with thick borders that are either red or blue. Dot the shell on all sides. Sticking out of its shell, Togepi has stubby, rounded cone arms and round feet with 2 toes each. Togepi has thin black oval eyes with thin black arches or arcs on their outer sides. Its head has 5 round-tipped cone-shaped spikes that seem to form a crown. It also has semi-oval brown pads on the soles of its feet. The anime has shown that it can retract into its shell, which it usually does to sleep. It is unable to siphon the positive energy of others, it is able to siphon the positive energy of others, storing that happiness in its shell, and then release it to those in need of it. Togepi is able to release poison from the spikes on its head. It has a very joyful nature. That's weird, right?
That's just someone randomly inserted a Toxicroak line into this Togepi.
It's just like so counterintuitive too, because it's a fairy type, right?
Yep.
That's
naturally
very strange. As a result, it is said that it shares its joy with those who take care of it. Because of its disposition, Togepi is seen as a sign of good luck, especially if a trainer is capable of getting a sleeping Togepi to stand. Get up! Togepi's innocent smile is said to calm the soul. It is also shown in the anime that Togepi can act very maliciously at times, causing havoc and bad luck to its enemies. Although it is rare in the wild, Togepi can most commonly be found living within the forests. Okay, I've got some beef with this Pokedex entry. Aside from the poison thing, it being malicious and causing havoc and bad luck to its enemies is kind of an extrapolation off of them just using Togepi for some comedic humor. I don't think that speaks to the species of Pokemon.
Yeah. Are there any other Togepis in the anime or just the one?
Yeah, there are some later on, but the specific scenes they're talking about, I mean, we've all seen that image of Togepi with its shaded face and the evil laugh going on. We've all seen that gif, right? That was Misty's Togepi, if I'm not mistaken. And that was sort of like an in-house interaction where that Togepi was just pranking another Pokemon on the team, right? Or something like that. This really feels like it's extrapolating out from Misty's Togepi's experience and applying it to all of them.
I mean, yeah. Well, let's go check out the Pikachu entry. Do they apply Ash's Pikachu to every Pikachu?
I think they're very, very particular about any Pokedex entry for Pikachu anywhere. So I doubt it would have anything like that. Who knows? Let's move on to Togetic. Togetic is a dainty bipedal Pokemon that is small in stature. It is white with a red and blue triangular ring pattern on its body. It also has a relatively long neck and long legs with a pair of wings on its back, giving it a vaguely angelic appearance. Togetic is capable of levitating itself without needing to flap its wings. Togetic can sense the kindness in other people and Pokemon's hearts. Whenever it spots a pure-hearted person, it tends to go to that person and shower them with happiness and glowing down called joy dust. To share its happiness, it is said to fly around the world seeking these people. If it is not with kind people, however, it becomes dispirited and loses energy. Togetic is rare in the wild, but can sometimes be found living within the forests. I'm just gonna leave joy dust there. I'm not bringing that up, but that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Togekiss. Togekiss is a white avian Pokemon with an ovoid body. While its feet are small and situated closely together, its wings are broad and triangular. Red and blue triangular markings over its underside. Markings are all over its underside, and it has a short tail consisting of 3 feathers. On the back of its head are 3 spikes, a red-tipped one on the right, a blue-tipped one on the left, and a pure white one in the middle. Togekiss has a relatively flat face and small black eyes. Togekiss have long been known worldwide as bringers of blessings, being depicted on good luck charms since ancient times. It is said that Togekiss brings good luck simply by virtue of its existence. Must be nice. However, they only appear in peaceful places and have never been witnessed anywhere near conflict or turmoil, making their recent sightings exceptionally rare. It shares many kind gifts and sweet blessings when it visits peaceful places or sees people who avoid strife and respect the rights of others. Nice. Justice seeker, Togekiss. We love that. So some stats here. These are going to be for Togekiss because Togekiss, while Togetic is usable in certain cups and things like that, Togekiss is kind of where it's at when we're really discussing this line. So max combat power at 40 is 3,332, and at 50 is 3,767. So you're within the throwing distance of 4,000, which is not too bad. 198 stamina, 217 defense, and 225 attack. They're like medium high stats, all of them. Togekiss is rather tanky, and that attack stat really gives it some relevance because that means it has a great TDO. And because it's a fairy type with access to fairy type moves, it has a double set for its stab, which now we all know is same type attack bonus. It does have some relevance and use in raid settings. So move set, you're going to want to bring Charm. Don't bring anything else but Charm for your fast move. Yeah. And then you're going to want to bring Dazzling Gleam if you're going to be using it for PvE DPS. This Pokemon is fantastic for taking down dragon raids. Like Togekiss is great. You should have Togekiss on deck for sure. Or you could run for PvP coverage, Aerial Ace and Flamethrower. Instead of Aerial Ace, you could also run Ancient Power to get different type coverage if you want, because there is a lot of flying type coverage in other Pokemon, like Seviper, for instance. But Flamethrower is that's the move you throw when you want to make somebody upset. Yeah. So yeah, Togekiss is great. Lots of relevance, all that good stuff. Any love for any of these 3 Pokemon, Kyle?
Togepi's cute. It's the OG baby Pokemon for the most part. I don't care that much overall. I think Go has made me like Togekiss more than I would have otherwise. Also, so 3 comments. 1, I have a Mandela effect from you reading Togekiss's description, because in my head, all 3 spikes on its head were white. If I had closed my eyes and you had not told me anything, I only remembered that it was white. You said red and then blue, and I'm like, wait, what? It jerked me back to reality, and I went and looked at the picture. I'm like, why did I remember this? What is wrong with me?
Yeah, no, that happens a lot. Describing Togepi as yellow is technically true, but also I just would never say that. I would say it's a white Pokemon, a white colored Pokemon, or cream, not yellow, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
And otherwise, Togekiss is like the 3rd or 4th best fairy type raid attacker currently. So good choices, especially this coming up weekend.
Mhm.
And it's ranked 49 on PV Poke for Master League as XL. So that's with Ancient Power, and it's very good. I feel like it used to be better in Ultra League. It is currently like ranked 200 or something. I swear like 5 seasons ago it was actually good, but
I think it was
maybe it was before the Poison rework.
I can tell you, I'm pretty sure I could tell you exactly what it was. I think it was before Dialga had as much relevance in Master League than it currently does. And the other dragons were like Giratina and stuff like that. And you brought Togekiss mainly as a counter, also just a good all-rounder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Who knows though, for sure. But anyway, that's it for PokéLore. Fantastic. That means that we're going to go next into PokéPoll.
Last week's PokéPoll was, how many remote raids would you do on a daily basis before the daily limit was introduced? First response is from Jay, and they said, it's depending on the 5-star raids. I would say 3 to 6 per week if the boss was great for PvP in Master League. Otherwise, I would just do my daily pass. For the Hoenn Megas, I did use remote raid passes because I was unable to play at in-person raids for that day. Because use of remote raids was Mewtwo, because I wanted a hundo, and it paid off in the end. All right. Well,
yeah.
Also, congrats on the hundo Mewtwo.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll be honest. 3 to 6 sounds like a very, very fair answer. I feel like a lot of the population would say. It seems like it's a very median answer.
It does. And I feel like the sentiment that we saw, because when we posted this on Twitter, we got like 100 and some odd responses, like a lot of people said like, oh, I do two or three a week, but on any given event, I do 10 or 20.
Yeah.
You know?
Next one's from Mad Kitty Cat, and they said, I would do as much as 10 to 20 a week if it was a shiny I didn't have, and my family in California, I live in New York, didn't have them. They live in a small town, so an event I will do unlimited, essentially, such as GoFest or Hoenn Tour, stuff like that.
There you go. There's that same answer, same idea. Absolutely. It's not that I want to do more than 5 every day. It's that I want to do 15 of them on occasion.
Yeah, exactly. It's like every other Saturday, can I just do 10? That's right. That's what I want.
On the weekends, make it unlimited. Something, I don't know.
Next one's from Justice, and they said, I didn't do many. I don't like to spend too much money on the game, and I need my gym coins for Pokemon and bag storage. So I did like 0 to 1 or 2 a week. Also fair.
Yep.
Bag storage is expensive if you're starting this game now. Depends
it really
on
is.
How comfortable you are with a small bag.
We forgot to mention at any point in time, but both the Pokemon storage and the inventory storage did get an increase, another 50.
Yay.
I haven't bought them yet.
I also have not bought them yet.
Wow,
I actually think
look at us.
I actually think I'm 100 behind for Pokemon storage right now.
Oh my gosh, how dare you.
I don't think I bought the one that came out with Hoenn Tour.
No.
I'll have to check.
It is actually kind of wild because in the past you and I have instantly done that. I know I have instantly done that, but like my finger is stayed on that buy button in that app right now. Like I'm really feeling it. It's not like I'm going to stop playing, but like it's really affecting my thought process now.
Yeah, and also like 6,100 storage is a lot of storage.
Oh, it's not enough storage, man.
It's a lot of storage.
Give me 10K. Let's go.
You know, if you had 10K, you would just fill it up.
I would be constantly at 9,500 and be like, where'd all my space go? Oh, it's these 38 shiny Bulbasaur.
Moving on. Our next response is from Grady F, and they said, good luck this week. You're going to get some, let's say, passionate answers here. Personally, my remote raids just depend on funds I can spend on the game. Even working the system using survey money or Google Play point coupons, I would remote raid just to help people. Whether I do 50 in a week or 5 in a week, I just don't enjoy $2 a pass because now I'm just much more hesitant to be a helper for someone lower level because I need to have the Pokemon I personally like or are meta relevant. It feels elitist compared to how I used to play the game and makes it feel like the game will be more selfish and less worldwide community based. Also, this 250 coin premium bundle mainly benefits spoofers, play at your own risk, but literally no benefit for an in-person experience because boxes already create a better value. That last take is a very fair statement, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I didn't even consider that, the who benefits question. We didn't follow that all the way through for some of these things, but that's, yeah. Well, so one more thing. I mean, I know that we talked about this a lot in the past before too, but we never really bring up topics like third-party auto catchers or spoofing and things like that because we are firmly against stuff that basically is against terms of service. And so just to say again, do not do these things. You will eventually get caught and you'll lose all the progress that you had, despite what you might hear to the contrary. There are lots of people that have lost their accounts and lost their minds over it online and just were like, oh, I did spoof, so I guess. Like, they just didn't know, right? But now you know. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yes. That said, we will probably keep mentioning it at least for the time being because it's so relevant to the topic.
It is relevant, yeah.
Don't do it. It's not worth it.
Yep.
There's better games to play. If you're gonna go through that effort, play other games. They're so much better.
Yep.
But understand why some people do it. So that said, the cost making it prohibitive to want to help people is huge. Like,
yeah,
I'll do a raid that somebody invites me if I have the game open, or I would have, just because I know that they sent one of 5 invites to me. And if it's a 5-star, they probably want at least 5 people there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go and say, oh, whatever.
I was listening to the most recent episode, and it won't be the most recent episode now, but of the Incense podcast. We were on there a little bit ago. Hopefully some of y'all checked it out, and we're working on getting them on here so you can hear them firsthand. But one of their very prominent listeners, Sue, or Hermes Ninja, who's like always at live events and things like that, didn't write in, but sent in a voicemail and said a lot of things that made a lot of sense. But the thing in particular that that really stuck with me was her commentary on the article from Ed Wu, who's, basically in charge of Pokemon Go's direction. Right. And was talking about all these things around balance in the game, that creating some limitations will bring balance to the game overall and longevity and things like that. And Sue is like, I just raided with a bunch of people because there's always issues with access in rural areas, and the game is not actively trying to work to fix that. It's just sort of like letting it go and seeing what happens, apparently. That Sue is like, me saying yes to other people and helping other people raid as much as possible is how I was trying to bring balance to the game. And I stopped and thought about that for a second. Like that makes so much more sense. If you're thinking about balance in terms of accessibility, which it largely is that sort of argument at this point in time, that people shouldn't be able to whale 50 raids so other people can't afford it. Oh, oops. Now none of us can afford it. Like being available and helping other people get things is the idea of balance. And I just wanted to point that out and shout out Sue for that, because it just made so much sense.
Yeah, I agree completely. No joke. I got a friend who doesn't play Pokemon Go. Very, very little. They're like level 25 just from casual play. And during a community day, it was probably Litwick that Xerneas was in raids. She had the day off. She was like, hey, I can't do Xerneas. Can you help me? She sent me the text. I looked at the people we were with and I was like, hey, y'all want to do a Xerneas, help my friend? And they're like, yeah, sure. Sent friend codes over, invited, did the raid. They caught it and they were really excited because they've never done a 5-star raid before. Mm-hmm. People are a lot less likely to say yes to that now because of the current changes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Have you also seen, by the way, when you try to invite people that have already met their limit, have you seen what the feedback text is?
I have not, no.
One trainer that you've invited cannot be invited to the lobby. They don't say the name of the trainer. So you're just
of course not. No,
you're just supposed to guess. Like,
Like, oh, okay, yeah, that's problem matters.
Maybe, but I don't know right now. Who knows? Anyway, I'm sorry. I took us way off tangent there, but yeah.
It's all right. Next one's from Maxotron. They said, I'm not one of the daily raiders, but it was nice to not have a cap or higher cost during Hoenn Tour. That enabled me to squeeze in the last several Groudon I needed after they had despawned in my time zone and my raid party had despawned for the day. The price hike will hurt my budget going forward, and the cap will prevent me from being able to maximize getting those Candy XLs. I know they say they're going to give more Candy XL for in-person raids, but I don't have much faith in that happening without a nerf in the extra Candy XL rolls you get. So this is a perfect opportunity because we didn't say it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It is 3 extra Candy XL as a raid reward. So you get it regardless of what happens as long as you finish the raid. That's fantastic. It's great.
Fantastic.
It is great. Don't get me wrong.
So yeah,
that's about it.
Just to clarify why that's really, really great. And Kyle said this as much, but just to make it crystal clear, you get those 3 candy, even if you don't catch the Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
Which is huge because there's a real chance that you might not catch that Pokemon, and a lot of people would feel like, oh, I wasted my raid pass. I'm not going to get the XL candy I'm even here for. You will get at least those 3 then, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yep.
Doesn't make up the current situation.
No,
but it is a great change.
But credit where credit is due on that one particular thing. Yeah, sure.
That said, even still, you are looking at 35 raids to max out that Pokemon level 50. That's still a lot, but it's a lot better. Definitely agree though with not having limits for stuff like Hoenn Tour. Really hoping that for the future events, when they say they'll adjust the cap, they don't go, okay, you can do twice as many remote raids during GoFest 2023, because I will probably cry. Not going to lie. For GoFest 2022 last year, I probably did more remote raids than anything else, partially because of our scheduling, but yeah. So here's hoping that they realize that when they do have it as a bonus, they have to uncap it, not just increase the cap.
And I'm also hoping that they would then put like a bundle or something up available where it's not nearly as price gougey as it is now. Because even if we could do unlimited, a lot of people, most people won't do more than 1 or 2 because of how prohibitive the pricing is.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Okay. Next answer in the form of an email is from Memorandoms, and they said, hello, Chris and Kyle. First off, just wanted to thank you for the pin you gave me at Hoenn Tour.
You bet. Nice to meet you.
And I wanted to answer the PokéPoll question. Most of my remote raid participation has been when helping out my friends who are more casual and need help taking down a bigger raid. Not only that, but because I went to school in Minnesota, currently in California, I can only raid with some of my friends via remote. I don't remote raid too often daily. I think the day I remote raided the most was when Shiny Genesect was released. Yeah. I had to go hard that day as it is untradeable due to being mythic.
Mm-hmm.
Although the nerf won't affect my usual playstyle, it will definitely affect my interactions with my friends. I no longer assist when invited, and I no longer send invites to them as I understand the price increase is too much. Another problem is some friends do not send or open gifts, Chris and Kyle, and raid participation would be the only way to get the daily friend interaction. But that is gone now too.
I know, dude. Our excuse is gone. We would say this to people all the time, like just send us raids because we're more likely to do a raid than ever open up a gift, right? And now I just, with a straight face, we can't tell people that anymore.
I work at a school campus, so I have consistent access to stops, raids, and spawns. Although this change affects the way I will play, I think the biggest problem here is that this change will stop many others from gaining access.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, thank you for reading this, and although I do not apologize for the long message, I do apologize for my scattered thoughts. Memorandoms. I
very well.
Apologize for scattered thoughts. Also, these weren't scattered. It was very neat and concise.
Very organized email. Yep. Yeah. So what about regional raids too, man? We won't be able to really do those that much.
I think that people will come out in hordes for regional raids.
Mhm.
Nothing's going to stop that from happening if it's necessary. That said, it was a massive problem for Celesteela. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it'll be better that way.
Maybe. We need to get Campfire rolled out first, though.
Oh, jeez.
I'm telling you, I used it a little bit this weekend, and although a lot of people did not also use it, those of us that did use it, it worked really quite well. I just wish it was available. It needs to be out already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we do have one voicemail response as well, so we're going to play that now.
Hey, Chris and Kyle. This is Brandon, or Hero Ice 18 again.
Hello.
Hopefully this goes better, as I think when I called in to the phone line, I got cut off, so hopefully I don't ramble as much. We'll see. But I just wanted to call in terms of the PokéPoll question of how many remote raids would you usually do? And for me personally, I didn't do a whole lot of remote raids, but I would consider myself more of a remote raid facilitator, where I would go out into my community and I would do a bunch of raids and I would invite a lot more people to do them. And especially with all the online communities I've become a part of, one being the Discord, other just being other communities like PKM and Cast, it's just been a great way for me to do these raids that I wouldn't have been able to before. I remember before COVID, when I used to play, it would be such a hassle to try and organize a Discord to go do one raid, and half the time people wouldn't show up or wouldn't be interested. But with the introduction of remote raids, I can do raids easily now, and they become a lot more fun. But now with the change, I can't really do that. I live in a town of around 1,400 people, so I'm pretty rural, and there's about 10 gyms in my city, which thankfully I've been able to get thanks to nominating Pokestops and such. But there's not a lot of people that play in the town, so when I go out for raid hours, usually I go with my friend and then I invite a whole bunch of people through my online communities, and we would do about 7 to 10 through the city. But now with the change, I live in Arizona, which is probably one of the last locations that gets raid hour. So by the time raid hour comes up, everyone's already used their passes for the day. And I've noticed that it's just hurt me a lot in raiding. Now I can't invite people, and even if I try to invite people later in the day to raid, you don't know that they've done their raids until after you've started the lobby, which is incredibly unhelpful, because then I'll use apps like PokeGenie, but no one will know if they've hit their limit for the day. And then I get in the raid and I can only invite a few people, and I end up failing the raid. So it's really frustrating. I wish if they had to do anything, I think the price increase would have been fine, but the whole limiting the 5 passes, I think, really hurts people like me that don't have a dedicated 3 to 5 people that can get out and do a raid. It's just extremely frustrating. Now, one of the parts that I've really learned to love about this game is just kind of died. And I hope that Niantic listens to our feedback and maybe just removes that. If they removed the limit, I would be a lot more okay with it. But as it stands, everything that they've done for remote raids has just been extremely frustrating. But I hope you guys have a good day, and I hope that everything works out, and have a good podcast. All right, bye.
Well, first of all, your voicemail did make it through as well. But yeah, sorry, I think you got cut off around the 3-minute mark. It's like not exact though, so I don't know if it's at 3 minutes or not, but I think it is. Anyway, that is such a strong sentiment. The whole being in the, like, one of the last time zones. Oh no, everybody's already used their raid passes. Even if they wanted to pay to help you, they couldn't do that. Like, in their efforts to balance the economy of meta Pokemon acquisition, which, by the way, this really doesn't actually solve. They've also messed up the economy of raiders in the raid pool. Like,
I think that's the biggest overall issue that we have.
Yeah.
The prices is absurd, but the fact that there are less people able to do remote raids hurts the people that need the remote raids the most.
Right.
Like, it's not going to affect me. Like, I can just straight up say it. This will almost never affect me, except in the few instances that it does, and I've already exampled them. But I can see why it affects other people.
Yeah.
And that's an important distinction to make.
Yeah. It's just heartbreaking. It could, because it feels unnecessary, you know?
Mm-hmm. And they made a great point. I did raids in my local community before remote raids were a thing because I wanted the dex entries.
Mm-hmm.
I almost never did it for candy except for the few times Mewtwo was in raid. We had a bot where you could post the egg and then you could react to it with an emoji and it would say that you're coming and all that. And then when you get there, you can hit that you're here. And then you're like, all right, is everybody here? All right, we're going to go in. I kid you not. From post to raid, 30 minutes. That's absurd. It's not fun. Nobody enjoys that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't talk to anybody doing that. I saw them when I got there and I'm like, oh, hey, that's Elizasaurus. Okay, now I know we can go. And then you're done. I didn't even say hi because we're all here for something. That's what we want. We need to go.
Right. Man, people are just trying to get it done. And by the time that you're getting to it, you're already like, I wasn't expecting for this to take 25 minutes. Like, I got stuff to do. I need to still hit the grocery store on the way home and pick up my kid from daycare or something. Like,
or forget about real life for a second. I want to do 5 more, but I didn't want it to take 3/4 of my evening to do. And what do I walk away with? Like, pennies in the overall game's currency.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean like literal currency, but stardust, candy.
Yeah. Yeah. Value, raid rewards. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a huge takeaway in what kind of joy that remote raiding brings as well.
Agreed on all points. But thank you very much for the voicemail response, Hero Eyes. Appreciate you, man.
So for this week's PokéPoll, we have, if you could change the color of one shiny Pokemon, what would it be? What color would you choose instead? And why?
I thought we were due for a fun one, considering all the other discussion topics have been a little defeatist lately.
Okay. All right. I have a question first before I answer.
Okay.
Or no, it's not a question. It's just going to explain my answer better. My 2 top answers get fixed by Mega Evolution, so I'm not going to count them because I think that's pretty cool. And my 3rd answer might surprise you, so why don't you go first?
Top 3 Kyle's answer. Number 3 will surprise you. Okay, I will go first. This is less of a change and more of a let's make up our mind already. And it's shiny Staryu. Is it white or is it green? Make up your mind.
White, please. So much better.
The lime green or whatever it is that it looks up in the shader. It looks okay. It looks okay. For as far as green shinies go, I know you're not a fan, but you do like Staryu, and that shade of green is pretty all right.
Yes, it's okay. It's no shiny Caesar, but yeah.
But because of the way that this question is asked, that's an example of a shiny situation that's frustrating to me. But if I had to change it from white or green, whatever it happens to actually be, I think I would probably want it to be like purple. So, and then the Starmie's shiny would be brown so that they like interchange. They trade. I love that. I think that'd be really cool and it would look great.
Okay. Mm-hmm. My answer is Aggron.
Why do you care about Aggron at all?
I like Aggron. Like, as a Pokemon, I'm a big fan. I liked it in Gen 3. It was a fun idea. I think his shiny is just bad.
Shiny is like a really light blue or green, right?
Yeah, it's like green. It replaces the like dark gray with green. It's like, I don't know. I would have liked to see it far more drastic. I think the red eyes on Aron is good. It is solid, small change, but I think it should have been a big change in the Mega. Like, the steel parts of it should be red instead of the eyes once it becomes Aggron. And then maybe make it an even darker green so you avoid like that Christmas effect. Give it like, like a forest green or something for the body instead.
So does Mega Aggron save it or no?
No, it's the same color scheme.
Oh,
it's
bummer.
one of those megas that doesn't actually change, I believe.
Bummer. Okay.
And for those wondering, top two, number one is Gengar because its shiny is awful, but Mega Gengar is supreme.
That's right.
And number two is Garchomp. Shiny Garchomp is horrendous, and shiny Mega Garchomp is bright pink, and I love it. So,
yeah, shiny regular Garchomp is a real letdown.
yeah,
Super letdown, especially considering how great Gibble's shiny is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Looks beautiful. So strange on the Garchomp. Dang.
Oh, and yeah, and they knew it too. They knew it because they fix it.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Well, dear listener, if you have an answer to this week's PokéPoll question, which is, again, if you could change the color of one shiny Pokemon, which would it be? What color would you choose instead, and why? You can answer that question when we post it on Twitter at GOCast Podcast. You can send us an email to mail@gocastpodcast.com. You can leave us a voicemail if you'd like to by calling 262-586-7717. If you're a patron of ours and on the Discord, we have an entire Discord channel dedicated to the question. When it gets posted, you can answer there, and we pull from there. You can also respond in a YouTube comment to the video version of this podcast. Yes, there is a video version. I will keep saying that. You should go check it out. I spent a lot of time on it. And I'm like kind of proud. It's been a fun direction. I've been very lucky for Kyle's willingness to throw himself on camera as well. And I hope you all are enjoying that. But also, last avenue of answering the PokéPoll question is if you're listening on Spotify in the mobile app, you can also answer the Q&A question there. So yeah, lots of ways to go about it. Speaking of emails, voicemails, sending us your thoughts and feelings, Kyle, where are we in the show? We're getting to the end, right?
That's right, because it's time for emails.
Oh, that's true. And we already played our one voicemail. So there's not another one. And this email is from Maxotron, who is double dipping this week. Thank you very much for saying this stuff. Hey, guys, I'm sure you've already read plenty about remote raids by this point, so I'll try and cut to the chase. Instead of jacking up the price and limiting the number you can do in a day, here's what I'm thinking. The people want Candy XL and Rare Candy XL first and foremost. Premium items I can kind of get behind, but they'd have to be slightly nerfed, or else the value of a raid pass would be way too high. Imagine getting a few Rare Candy XL, a single-use incubator, and a star piece alongside regular raid rewards. Sounds awesome for us, but that's not economically sound. Why buy anything else after that? You could nerf premium items, though, to alleviate this and still allow them to incentivize in-person raids. Raid incubators could be used only once, or only on 2, 5, or 10-kilometer eggs, or you can have a limit on how many you can have in use or in your bag before you stop receiving more, or like a different colored incubator or something like that. I would be down for that. Raid star pieces / lucky eggs wouldn't give as high of a boost. It would not stack with conventional pieces and eggs. Rare Candy XL just needs to happen. True. I'll get behind that statement. It does just need to happen. There's no reason it is such an incredibly rare item. And on a side note, I'm upset that that they took it out of raid rewards during Hoenn Tour. Nearly all of my raids that weekend were in person, so it would have been nice to not get a nerfed raid reward pool for the time and money I put into it. Fair take. Very fair take. Consider yourself heard. Honestly, that was not fun. How much Candy XL should we get to make in-person raids worth it? I feel like that number should correlate with how many people attend in person, alongside any event and mega boosts. So if you have 20 people at the raid, give people at most a candy for each person attending. I know that sounds absurd, but that's the kind of thing I feel would really help people feel motivated to get out and raid in person. Not to mention close the gap between legendary spammers in Master League and the rest of the people who would like to bring a Dialga, Mewtwo, and a Zacian on their team all at 50. All in all, I know we're going to hemorrhage some players over remote raids. Every community will be hit, and rural communities the most. For those that didn't play much before remote raids, raids in person are a lot of fun. I know Chris and Kyle can attest to that. Absolutely. Have some of the best times in Pokemon Go during our in-person stuff, for sure. You can have all day raid days where you rent a passenger van and waft through the flavor of the week, or you can congregate around community days and do raids as they pop up. Some of my best memories are around raiding in person. During Beldam Community Day, there were hundreds already playing on campus where I live, but they all fit into my camera frame when a legendary raid popped up along the walking route. Yeah. Remember that time we got yelled at the zoo for blocking that entrance?
Oh, yeah.
You guys have to move. It's a fire hazard, bro. Like, but it's Mewtwo.
Yep.
It's great. That was such a great experience. It's kind of like the energy you feel when you attend a sporting event in a stadium and everyone is doing the wave or cheering or booing. It's sublime. I also remember that gym defense before EX raids and some raid days used to matter a lot, so we'd coordinate painting the town red and rotating who would watch a gym before an egg hatched. We got our first Groudon in town on a red gym, and so many intense battles were fought over Mewtwo EX raids. I know, not everyone can participate in stuff like this for time or health's sake, but for those who can but don't want to, it is worth it. To me, the whole thing seems like them trying to close Pandora's box and hopefully return to a time somewhat of what it was like before COVID. Game-wise, they can do that, but the player base will never be the same. Sorry for the long email. Hags and cats and shiny vibes all. Maxitron. So I know hags have a great summer. What's cats? Do you know that one?
No, I didn't know what hags was either, so I'm glad you did.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's what you write like in people's yearbooks and stuff at the end of the year. Have a great summer.
Nope.
No?
Never did that.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I signed yearbooks. I never got someone who signed that in my yearbook, though.
It's like
I guess people just didn't like me. This is
my autograph
I'm finding
is
out now 20 years later.
Perfect. That's right. You got to go back and like all those names are now people on a list, right? You just thought that your autograph was good enough. You're like, oh, these people want me to sign their yearbook because I was the best thing that ever happened at this school, right? Like, but yeah, no, I think we all do agree. You can maintain the position that in-person raids are the way to play and do raids while also still maintaining the position that remote raids have a place and these changes have ultimately been the wrong way to go about what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, agreed. And I will just say that raiding is great. Raids themselves are terrible, as we've said multiple times.
Yep.
But raiding in person is so incredibly difficult if you don't get to coordinate it. You know, I like Maxtron says, an all-day raid day is awesome. There is nothing else like it. Being in a car with, 5 other people who all share these interests and you get to spend that time with them. But I can do that regardless. Like, I don't need to be limited. And that kind of play is not what Niantic wants to encourage. That's not the real world interaction that they want, because you're just interacting with your friends that you've already made. You're not making new ones when you have moments like that.
Yeah. I think the only time that I've actually had like a pure cut and dry Niantic experience is when we did like the Suicune or Entei raids in the city, and I made a map and we ended up picking some people up along the route because they didn't have a group, and we got to know them a little bit, and that was cool. But that happened on specific days in one of the most highly designed for it, and one of the most highly populated metropolitan cities in the United States. Like, it's not going to happen in Hodunk nowhere, So anyway, I've said this a million times, but yes, in-person raids are the way to go. I just think that the game needs to do more in going after that without tearing down other things, Anyway. Cool. Well, that brings us to the end of the show. If you would like to send us an email just like this fine folk did, you can by sending it to mail@gocastpodcast.com. Follow our website, or actually follow us on Twitter @GoCastPodcast. There we go. Go to our website for all things GoCast Podcast, gocastpodcast.com. You can help support the show monetarily by hopping on Patreon, becoming a patron there. And that's spelled patreon.com/GoCast Podcast. And speaking of patrons, shout out to our elite trainer tier patrons. I'm not going to ask Kyle to do it this week because his poor mouth. But Bo, Daniel, Lori, Michael, Ozzy, Ted, Tish, Marvin and Mimi, Swartz, pursuing Ryan Thayer, Jason, Justin, Charles, Moners, Lee, William, Brandon, Ethan, Steven, Nick, Kelvin, our favorite listener, Drew 2, Camo, and The Ugly Rock. Thank you so much for your patronage and your generous support in helping us keep the digital lights on. You're the best. But if monetary support is not in the cards for you, or you'd like to help support the show even more so, please consider leaving us a review. It helps us out immensely, and it's just free for you. Just, costs you a few seconds if you don't mind. And speaking of, we got 2 new reviews since our last recording. This first one is from Jenna. Super high quality podcast. You can tell they edit out mistakes or boost the volume when necessary, and that makes listening a breeze rather than a chore. GOCast spreads positivity and really reminds you why you love Pokemon Go in the first place. Run by 4 really talented and engaging people along with some cool guests, I feel truly honored that they read aloud my PokéPoll response, and that definitely made my day. I'm not sorry for the long email. So incredibly kind. I have a hard time taking compliments. These are always really difficult to read. But so thank you very, very much. Thank you. And then the other review is from the Phoenix 24. A really great podcast all around, from the personalities to the production level, the different segments, and there's even a separate podcast built in specifically for PvP. Shout out to PvP Corner. Y'all better be listening. That's all I'm going to say. Pretty full package here. Some real likable hosts and just a good vibe throughout the show. Thank you again. Such kind words. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So yes, please consider leaving a review. It should be pretty easy and straightforward unless you're listening on Google Podcasts, in which case, go somewhere else. Please just go somewhere else for your sake, not even ours. Just go somewhere else that actually supports proper podcast infrastructure. I'm just still so surprised. Anyway, we only have one more thing to do, Kyle, and we have to set some goals on our way out the door here. So what are you going to try to accomplish this week, including Togetic Community Day?
All right. So like I said, I got a birthday party, so I'm not actually sure how much I'm going to get to play. We're going to see. It's supposed to be nice outside, which is exciting. So just 3 shiny Togetic, because I want to just finish the family, I suppose. That doesn't really work because one of them is a baby, but I have the shiny baby. So, 25 eggs hatched. That's going to be the 9 that I currently have, and then whatever I get on the day, hopefully. Continue my mega progress slowly but surely, and 200k Stardust. So hopefully I do get to play, because that's where I'm going to be getting most of it.
Yeah, ideally, even if you have your Ball Plus going, you're getting bonus Stardust for the Togetic catches base. So you'll be doing
I hope
good.
They adjust the catch rate. Oh man,
yeah, I really hope they do.
Togetic has such a low base catch rate.
It's gonna be red circles for days, man.
Oh, you like broke completely for me.
Oh,
I know what you is. It's going to be red circle, and then I heard nothing.
Oh, it's a red circles for days.
Oh yeah. I'm expecting it. I'm expecting dark orange for the whole day.
Oh, well, at least it's not yellow when it's very clearly cream colored. Come on. Anyway, my goals are similar, but in a different magnitude. 30 shiny Togetic, because I do not have a birthday party to go to. 50 eggs hatched, because it's going to be beautiful, and I intend on walking. It's going to be like the first community day I've been able to get out and do some serious walking and stuff in a minute. So I'm very excited. 50 kilometers as a result of this goal. We'll see. I'd have to get out and do some other walks prior to this, so we'll see. I got a busy week, so it might just happen naturally. Who knows? And then 200 million experience total. So I need another 1.2 million as of this recording in order to get there. So can Chris do it? 3rd week in a row he's made that one same goal. The answer is maybe. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening all the way through, dear listener. I promise next week we'll talk about more than just remote raid passes. But until then, have a great community day, and we'll see you for episode 233. Bye-bye.
Bye.